Hi guys. So in this session, we are going to discuss three extremely important areas when it comes to your chapter on politics and society or political sociology. So in fact, these are two topics and the topics are pressure groups and political parties. And we'll also cover political parties in India as that can also be asked as a separate question. So pressure groups, they used to ask this question, political parties, both of these you used to get even 10 marker and also 20 marker. And these institutions, they form the backbone of any democratic system. So they can influence the decisions, they can shape the public life, and can determine how power circulates in the modern society. So today, what I'll do is I'll explain each of these concepts very clearly so that you will understand and you will be able to reproduce the same. And we will be using the sociological theories. And also we will look at some of the important definitions, the key thinkers, and the Indian example also as exactly required in your exam. Okay, so let's start with pressure groups. What are pressure groups? See, pressure groups are also known as interest groups. We can say those who have certain interests, right? So they represent the interest of specific sections of society. So pressure group, I can say, is similar to all or is almost equal to interest group. Okay, so different people, different groups have different interest. So the group which represent the interest of specific sections of society, for example, farmers group. So what's their interest? They're looking for increase in minimum support price, free electricity, free water, irrigation, like that. So their interest is that. So they form a group. That's the interest group, and they pressurize the government or others. So to get the things done for them. So they become pressure group, right? So farmers group, business people group, student group, teachers group, workers group, transgender community that reflect their interest, consumers, like these are the different interest group or these can act as pressure group also. So they do not aim to capture political power. That's political party. So here what they do is they try to attempt to influence those who hold the power and get their interest done. So this is why pressure groups are also called as informal centers of power. So they are not trying to capture the political power. So those who are in power position, these guys will try to influence them, right? So that's why there's a kind of informal centers of power. You can write the definition I've given in your PDF also, and I've discussed this in the class also, David Truman and then Herman Finer. So these definitions you can write. If I want to give it again, I'll just read it out. So David Truman, he's an American political scientist, defined interest group as a shared attitude group that makes certain claims upon other groups in society. So a shared attitude group that makes certain claims upon other groups in society. Now, Herman Finer. So what he's talking about is where pressure groups are strong, political parties will be feeble. That is because pressure groups often shape the real political process from behind the scenes. So political process will be definitely influenced by these pressure groups, especially farmers group, the caste groups, right? So they act as very heavy pressure groups. I'm not talking about all the interest group that they can influence the government or policies like that, but some of the groups, farmers groups is very strong. Caste based groups are very strong. Now the question is, why do the pressure groups exist? See, we are living in a representative democracy. Like we are living in, if we are talking about India or US, all these are democratic societies, right? Representative democracy. So elected government cannot represent every interest directly. So the population, if you look at it, it's too large and too diverse also, especially countries like India. So indirect democracy require organized voices to channel the demand. So therefore, pressure group in fact complemented they'll act as complement, right, to the existing political system or the elected representative, because elected representative cannot reach out to everyone. The elected government cannot reach out to everyone's interest directly. So these pressure group that will act as complement to elected representative and act as the intermediaries between the public and government. Now, what are the types and nature? See, there can be the pressure groups can be political and apolitical. Political, I can give you an example like ABVP, right? This is affiliated to BJP, like that. Political associations are there. Apolitical is what I mean by farmers union, students union. Sometimes students unions are also connected politically, but farmers unions, like that. Okay, so some pressure groups are powerful and organized. Not all pressure groups are powerful. Not all pressure groups are very clearly organized. So others may be weak and scattered also. What are the main functions of pressure group? That's what we need to understand more, importantly. So lobbying. So they basically meet the government officials and lobby for policy changes for the interest of that particular group. So lobbying, and then petitioning and campaigning. See, they file the petitions, they organize the movements, they organize the protest and awareness campaigns to satisfy their interest. And then mobilizing public opinion. They articulate issues and bring them into political discourse. Okay, and they provide the expertise. Many pressure groups provide expert knowledge to the government in specialized areas. So these are, functions of pressure group which you can mention. Now, what is an effective pressure group and what is not? What are the limitations of pressure group and what are the criticisms, right? See, if you need to understand the effectiveness of pressure group, that depends on several factors, or I could say determinants of effectiveness of pressure group. Or this can be under a separate question also. Firstly, historical background, then the economic base of that group, right? And then the organizational capacity, to what extent it can mobilize the masses, mobilization methods, what methods it is used, right? And the nature of political setup, quality of leadership, all these are determining the effectiveness of the pressure group, the ideology that it is following, the kind of mobilization, right? The kind of strategies that they are using. So all these factors together influence how successfully a pressure group can impact the government decision making. Some of them make violent protest also, some of them make a Gandhian model peaceful protest also, like that. So it all depends on, these factors that I have discussed. Now, what are the criticisms, the limitations? It have their criticisms or the weakness or limitations also, because they may represent only some powerful minorities. The majority who are powerless may not be represented also, and they can sometimes pressure the government in a way that can harm the others, the majority also, and they may create non-transparent decision making, and they may result in political inequality, since you see, a group with more resources, they get more access and they get more power, informal power. So this is what all about a pressure group, and with this knowledge, you will be in a position to write, and the thinkers and the perspectives that you need to add, look at the PDF and cover it all. Okay, so this is just a revision session. Now let's move on to the second part, that is political parties. See, Max Weber defined a political party. That definition you need to write, right? So this is an organized structure which promote candidate and contest election for capturing power. So you want to capture the power. So you promote a candidate, the party is represented by a candidate and will contest election and will try to capture the power. So this is an organized structure which promote a candidate, contest election with the aim of capturing power. And Gluckman adds that this definition is limited because parties differ in ideology, organization, and durability. So simply by saying, it's an organized structure which promote candidate, contest election, capture power, won't be a typical definition of political party, because different party have different organizational level, different ideology level, different kind of durability, different kind of organization and all, right? So in simple terms, if you look at political parties, these are organized group of people, and they share a same beliefs and ideology, just like how we define religion in Turkey. Those who share the same beliefs and practices belong to same moral community called a church. Here, same beliefs and ideology for a political party. Different parties, Communist Party have its own belief and ideology, Congress have their ideology, BJP have their ideology. So these are organized group of people. They have a shared beliefs and ideology, and they aim to secure political power through elections or constitutional means. Right, so that capturing power through election, contesting election or nominating a candidate is just one part. You need to talk about this is an organization, and then at the same time, same beliefs and ideology. Now, what are the role of political parties in society? So let's understand from functionalist and Marxist also. So according to functionalists, political parties are guardians of power in society, and they ensure a collective well-being. They mobilize the public opinion, and they discipline the ruling government through criticisms, and they provide stability in large democracies. And Robert Dahl says the political parties act as link between government and people, and they provide a platform for the interest articulation. I repeat, the political parties act as link between government and people and provide platform for interest articulation. These are self-explanatory, and I've done this well much before, right? So again, Robert Michels. These are two important thinkers that we often use. Robert Michels in Political Parties 1911. He argued most political parties become dominated by a small elite that we already know. And that leads to his concept of iron law of oligarchy, which means in every organization, power eventually falls into the hands of few. So iron law of oligarchy, we have discussed it before also. Now, coming to participation in political system, Lester Milbrath. Milbrath identified four types of political participation. You need to write this exactly like this. Lester Milbrath, four types of political participation. They can ask you separately also like this: the political apathics and political spectators, transitional activists, and gladiators. Political apathics means people unaware or disinterested in politics. And then political spectators, they mean people who participate occasionally, like voting discussions, like that. We are like that only. Occasionally we participate, right? And then transitional activists, right? So that means they attend the meetings and they raise funds, politically active during times of change. For example, supporters during this Anna Hazare Jan Lokpal movement. So they actively participate when there is a movement and then raise funds, and they are politically active whenever that change is coming. Gladiators, these people who enter the political arena, and these are the politicians themselves, actually gladiators. So these are four different categories: political apathetics, people unaware of politics, disinterested in politics. You won't vote, you are not bothered about whatever is happening around you. Election is going on, I'm not worried about that, I'm not bothered about that, I'm not even going to vote also. Political spectators, normal people, they participate occasionally when it comes to election, voting, some discussions like that. Okay, so transitional activists and gladiators. Now, again, political parties as interest-serving bodies that they can ask you a question. Some scholars also argue this, right? People join or support parties based on group or personal interest and not necessarily for a ideological commitment. Dye and Ziegler, they say, political parties often create excitement and divert masses from the dominance of elites, and elections create a false impression of representation. Guys, go through this in detail, which I've given in the PDF. So these are the key points that I'm mentioning. Now let's look at political parties in India. They can ask you in paper 2 also. They can even ask in paper 1 also. So political parties in India. So what about Indian democratic structure? We have adopted a multi-party parliamentary system after independence, and the Congress dominated for almost 4 decades. But there are regional aspirations, so regional parties emerged. Socio-economic diversities, caste and identity politics have also came into existence, and because of all these, that led to rise of several political parties. Now there are different types of parties. Like India, you can see parties are generally divided into two types: national parties and regional parties. So now the question is, why so many parties in India? See, Indian political parties are shaped by multiple factors, like caste is one factor, right? And then religion is another factor. Religion-based, parties are there. Regional parties are there. Linguistic identity is another one. Sub-regional movements are there. Historical grievances are there. Because of these, multiple different parties are there. For example, BSP, Bahujan Samaj Party, they represent the Dalit interest. And then Jharkhand Mukti Morcha, they advocate for creation of Jharkhand, JMM. And TRS, now it's BRS, they fought for Telangana statehood. And then various parties that represent Northeast ethnic aspirations, like that. So now the question is the positives and negatives of this party system that we have, the multi-party system. There are positives because that ensure representation of India's diversity and then prevents concentration of power and also provide political choice. What are the negatives? So the negatives is the coalition instability, opportunistic politics, and the horse trading, weak ideological commitment, dynastic politics, lack of internal democracy. All these are the negatives. And then scholars like Paul Grass argue that many political parties suffer from inadequate nation building spirit, internal contradictions among them, corruptions, caste centered mobilization. So guys, all these points, whatever I discussed, if you can retain at least 25% of what we are discussing, that will be fine for you to write beautiful answer. So what we discussed today is pressure groups, very important topic. We discussed what they are, why they exist, and what are their types, what are the functions, effectiveness, and limitations. We covered political parties, the definition, the roles, democratic importance, participation level, and criticisms and the thinkers' views. And the political parties in India, we briefly covered the multi-party system, national versus regional parties, and the reasons behind the proliferation of these regional parties, the different parties, and also the challenges. See, understanding this is very crucial. One question was expected from any of these three in your UPSC paper. So that's the kind of importance that you need to give. I hope you got some value from the session. I see you in the next video. If you're looking for any mentorship program or classes or test series for sociology, get in touch with us. We're there to help you. See you guys.